But give us that story about what you guys do, and then let's double click into what you're doing with SingleStore.
Sure, yeah. I'm Kannan, I'm Chief Architect of LiveRamp. And LiveRamp is a data collaboration platform, right? So we let basically customer data, different customer touchpoint data, and we make it useful by connecting them together, right? And we let you collaborate with your partners and customers using that data, right? So that is our main collaboration platform does, actually, right? So we have like nearly 2 decades of experience in the space, right? And so we have like partners, rich partners for so many years, and we developed relationships and all those good stuff, right? Which is like wine, it's good by aging, right? Whereas technology is not that, right? Technology we have to reinvent. We have to reinvent every few years, right? To stay on top of it. The knowledge and database is good, right? But whereas technology we have to reinvent. So that's what we are doing right now. We are reinventing ourselves with a new technology like SingleStore and different new technologies of stack. We are upgrading it to solve our problems now. So yeah, that's where.
And I understand that LiveRamp has 2 terabytes of read and write on an object store with SingleStore. Talk about that and why that's so crucial to LiveRamp's business.
So, yeah, basically, right, I joined LiveRamp like 3 years back. We started looking at their data very deeply. The LiveRamp's data is more structured data, right? Whereas we've been using Hadoop kind of process to scale it, right? Because that was the only thing available at that point of time, right? With the structured data, we want to scale with a really good database. That's where we are evaluating database. At the time SingleStore came, we evaluated SingleStore, right? At that time, SingleStore started supporting object store. At the same time, Google had good object store support, the GCS support, which gave us like multi-terabytes per second speed, which came together really well for us to solve our problems, right? So now, with the combination of GCS as an object store and SingleStore as a database and our data, we were able to get hours, like a batch process which was taking for like 20 plus hours, we were able to bring it down to seconds, right? So that led us to a big change and started working on it, where from batch process to close to real-time processing kind of thing now. So when we are doing that, SingleStore introduced VectorDB, like in a vector approach. That get us like a different angle to move our analytical data, like for the transactional data and analytical data we were able to do with the same database. Now we were able to convert to vector. With the vector data, we were able to train the models and bring the models to live, right? So, I don't know, in 2019, I mentioned this in Apple's Foundation DB Summit, that there's we need a data store to solve the micro models, right? We need micro models, and to solve that we need a good data store. In 2019, I talked about it, SingleStore solved it now. And I think it's like a dream come true kind of way, in a way, right? So we need that type of, because LLMs and bigger models are huge data models are there, actually, right? But whereas to solve enterprise problems, we need micro models, more specific models for that enterprise to solve their problems. To do that, we need to convert our data into vector and train our models. That's where SingleStore coming into play, where we can move our analytical data and transactional data into vector and train our models with the GPU support. You know what, we'll be the fastest graph and biggest graph in the world.
Yeah, I think you've described what sounds like a very complex architecture, but that's actually quite common when you start dealing with scale. The structured data, the unstructured data, multiple different database implementations in there. But you also gave us a bit of what you want out of the next generation. So keep tugging on that thread. Tell us a bit more about your vision into where this evolves.
So basically, right, now the analytical data is there, transactional data is there. Now they combine it together. That's very, very good, right? So we need one database to solve both the data. Now they moved it to vector now. So when the data is in vector, still the GPU memory and our CPU memory are isolated now. So this is the database which is closest to solve the problem, because they swap between memory and storage very easily now. With with the partnership with NVIDIA they have, my dream is for them to do the same swapping between GPU and memory and disk, which will solve the whole problem.
That's how you're going to meet in the middle between the CPU and the GPU is SingleStore.
Yeah, because they're native memory store database, right? So they already done it in memory. So they are the closest one to solve that in GPU. Right, that's my vision one. I want to solve the world problems.
Well, thank you. That's great. Raj, bringing you back into the conversation, talk a little bit about some of the technology requirements that LiveRamp had that came to SingleStore and said, this is what we've been doing, it's not working, we've got a lot of customer demand. What were some of those technology requirements under the hood that SingleStore delivers that no other competitor can?
Yeah, I do think that probably Kannan knows SingleStore as well as any of our engineers do. I mean, that's really the beauty of the infrastructure world. One of the things that you touched upon, Justin, was you said that the architecture for the new age seems very complex.
Yep.
That's true. And one of the core things that we at SingleStore, apart from performance and the other stuff that I'm going to get into, we feel this complexity cannot scale. And if you're, the only thing that scales is simplicity,
Yeah.
all right? Now, simplicity doesn't mean you ignore complexity, it means you conquer it.
Right.
And what we at SingleStore believe is that you can retire between 3 to 7 databases from your architecture by bringing in SingleStore, hence the name, and you were part of the rebranding, SingleStore for your data. Now, that doesn't mean that the world only needs one database. Sure, it needs more than one, but a vast majority of the data workloads can be managed by SingleStore. So that was one of the big, and I don't mean to speak on Kannan's behalf, but as he articulates, that solved a lot of the complexity, or will solve a lot of the complexity for LiveRamp.
Yeah.
Apart from the fact that there is always this tug of war between performance and price tag,
Yeah.
right? So of course everyone likes performance, but at what cost?
Right.
Due to our unique storage architecture, right? We are memory, disk, and object store. So you can get low single-digit millisecond response times as well as the lowest TCO for your business. And that, fundamentally is the value proposition of SingleStore, which was thankfully very well recognized by Kannan and then by his team. So very grateful for their support.
So I don't want to go too deep. I'm sure we can read the white papers on it, but just tell us a little bit about the performance of SingleStore. I'm super interested in how fast can that GPU, put and get data from it.
So one of our esteemed customers, wink wink, they have been able to reduce their response time from 44 hours to 18 seconds.
Oh, wow.
So that's what we are talking about.
So 2
And
days.
I know someone who can talk more about it, but that's the sort of time that we're looking at. But I'll give you another couple of examples. We actually have a very large telecommunication provider which takes all these reports from the telemetry on their switches and infrastructure. They had a report they called the big report.
Yep.
And that would run for 12 hours and then time out because it just couldn't process the information. They have converted that into a real-time dashboard using SingleStore. So you're talking about 3 to 4 orders of magnitude difference in performance.
Kannan, can you elaborate on that? I
Sure.
think that the spotlight is on you.
So one of the main thing is we are innovation company, right? We want to innovate, right? So we want an innovative partner. That's what we looked at SingleStore, right? We want equally innovative partners so that we can change the world for in our side, right? So that's one of the reasons. And when you look at the details as you asked for it, right? So it checked up all the check marks we wanted, right? We had a good SQL interface as a MySQL interface for the database. And we had now they produce MongoDB interface. Now we have other Arrow kind of different interfaces they're developing now. So we are solid interfaces to get to the data. And the storage from memory and disk, NVMEs and solid state disks, and went to object store. That object store support made the difference of analytical database, right? That changed the world, actually, right? It's yet to realize fully for the rest of the world, but we are happy to be in the front, right? Solving the bigger problems, because now the database is bottomless. But still we can use the power of memory and real-time processing in an efficient way. They are the best persons to swap the data between those things very, very efficiently. So that's where we are getting millisecond performance on the things which we are doing. Beyond the I/O level, we were able to cache and get the data performance in the current system now.
Kannan, question for you, from LiveRamp's perspective, what are some of the additional data collaboration opportunities that Gen AI is going to be able to deliver, and how is SingleStore a catalyst in that?
So basically, right, we can use the Gen AI in different places, right? One is letting our customers to run queries against our data, and to analyze the data, we are providing a Gen AI layer using their interface, actually, right, to provide that. That is one part of it, and that is the simplest part, I think, right, because it's a well-known use case, everybody knows about it. of course, is an easy low-hanging fruit. But the hard part is using our graph data and converting our graph into a vector data and building models against it to answer some of the questions we are trying to do with basic joins and basic table ones. Using a customized model is going to be the future. That is where we can change the way we are working and change the world is working, right? So that is where the biggest change we are expecting. That's where we are partnering with both Google on the Vertex side and SingleStore on the Vector DB side. So we are combining and trying to solve a bigger problem now.
And we do integrate with Vertex
nice.
seamlessly, so that
Excellent.
helps.
Raj, last question for you. You know, there's been a lot of challenges in building modern Gen AI applications. How does SingleStore solve those for your customers?
Yeah, we actually have a fairly simple mantra. You know, if you've ignored your data estate for decades, AI is not your silver bullet that's going to solve it, right? So fundamentally, your ability to hop onto this, train of AI is steeped in how well you have looked after your data estate. Yeah. If it's complex, if it has multiple data stores, if the data is very, very fragmented, and of course, you're going to just find it harder. A lot of the customers who've done the hard work and have created their own, what we call contextual store, which is a single store where you get contextual data in, and then that contextual data can train your LLMs, like Kannan and I were talking right before the show, to provide that unique context of your organization to what I call industrial LLMs, and they can then respond and be the ambassador of AI for your company.
I like that.
That's really where we shine. And also, speed is extremely important in AI, and SingleStore's always stood for speed, and speed at reasonable economical costs, and that's really our mantra.
And at scale, love it. Raj, Kannan, thank you so much for joining us, sharing how SingleStore and LiveRamp are working together, how you're using Gen AI, and really the data collaboration benefits that your customers are getting and all the data customers of SingleStore. We really appreciate your insights and your time.
Thank you for having us.
Our pleasure.
We appreciate your time.